Scrupulosity is a observed condition from the 1600s in the Catholic Church. Monks were noticed as engaging in repetitive and excessive prayer, and the powers that be recognized that these monks' behavior and adherence to correct praying was not at all in keeping with what they would have hoped to be an expression of God's love, but that the person was trying to achieve an unrealistic state of holiness. And so the term scrupulosity grew out of those observations from the 1600s. Scrupulosity, as a subset of OCD, exists where persons are overly preoccupied with doing the right thing, whether that means religiously or morally or ethically. A person with scrupulosity will often pray over and over again and say the same prayer over and over again until they achieve a state of certainty that they've said it exactly in a way that God would approve of, or that they've gotten it correct and pronounced every word so that God would recognize their sincerity. Scrupulosity with religion involves engaging in sometimes excessive rumination to prove that they haven't said something that God might consider to be blasphemous. Or a person might engage in excessive confessions to a rabbi, excessive confessions to a priest. They might have associations that are natural that they find might be offensive to God. And then they find themselves in a state of ungodliness or distance from God's love. And so these rituals involve trying to get closure so that they can put that moment behind them and move forward with a clear conscience that they haven't offended God. A way of differentiating scrupulosity from a person who's authentically devout is a person who's devout as they engage in behavior that fits their standards, that fits their values. They feel a sense of satisfaction that they're serving God's will. Or a person who is engaging in a high standard of ethics in societal standards feels a sense of accomplishment that they're living their life in a positive way, in a very, very ethical way, so that they have a higher regard for being disciplined. A person with scrupulosity is desperately trying to discount their brain's accusation that they might be doing something wrong. And so they never really achieve a sense of satisfaction. They're in an endless loop of escaping guilt or trying to rid themselves of anxiety. And so there's a complete lack of fulfillment in their behavior because it's often alien to what their actual values are. So there's a tremendous amount of torment for a person with scrupulosity in their praying, in their confessing. Whereas a person who actually has a devout religious attachment would leave confession feeling very, very satisfied. So common symptoms of scrupulosity involve an excessive preoccupation and checking with doing the right thing, either through God's eyes doing the right thing or through societal standards of doing the right thing. So that might involve using a significant other to constantly confess to. It might involve a lot of internet research. It might involve a lot of visits to a church or a synagogue or a mosque to find that the person is engaging in the correct religious behavior or having ethically correct thoughts. Scrupulosity can also exist with things that are not of a religious nature, such as doing the right ethical thing. So a person might say that they arrived home at 4:30 and it was actually 4:31, and they might get the thought, oh boy, I've lied about my arrival time. And so they might then restate their arrival time to represent the exact 4:31. So it can exist in this preoccupation with correctness toward God's wishes or correctness toward societal standards of ethics. think the most common misconception is that someone with scrupulosity might actually consider themselves to be more devout than someone without scrupulosity. And once again, there is no greater proclivity toward a person's character in being more devout. It's just their brain artificially creating that agenda when, without that energy behind it of guilt and anxiety, a person would not have any tendency to be more religiously correct. If someone notices a family or friend having a proclivity toward being excessively conscientious, whether through religion or through law or legality or ethics, I think it's important to bring it to the sufferer's attention as something that might be more of a treatable condition than as a desirable, endless tendency to acquire a sense of closure that a person's not engaging in inappropriate behavior or non-religious behavior. Recovery for someone with scrupulosity would involve the person's actions being dictated by their actual authentic values and moral standards, rather than being dictated by guilt or anxiety dictating and predicating that their behavior needs to put out this emotional fire. They would go back to engaging in living from a more natural and peaceful place in terms of their decision making, rather than being manipulated by guilt.